So welcome to this second webinar for UKMIdSS, and the purpose of this is to focus on data entry. For those who haven't heard me or met me before, I'm Rachel Rowe and I'm the head of UKMIdSS, and Ginny Mounts, our UKMIdSS research midwife, is with us as well. Last time we focused on monthly reporting. Hopefully those of you who didn't join that webinar in person have had a chance to catch up with it on our website, but it is there now, so please do that. And here we are, this is us. So thank you everybody, as I said, for getting this far. I think I've already said it, but we have muted you or switched your video off. You should be able to hear us and see the presentation. To ask a question, please use the chat facility and type your question. We might stop if it seems like a convenient thing to do to answer questions as we go along, but otherwise we'll come to your questions at the end. So just to, I'm going to start with a brief recap and reminder about monthly reporting, and then quickly tell you about the UKMIdSS folders that those of you who are new reporters or new units joining UKMIdSS will have had. For most of the session, we're going to focus on the detailed data that we're asking you to send us on your cases and controls, and take you through how you can send us that data using Open Clinica. So the role of the UKMIdSS reporter, this is what we covered last time, but just to remind you, you're the main point of contact for UKMIdSS in your unit. Your role is to identify cases for UKMIdSS studies, so that's the study that we're starting now is investigating PPH, report to us every month and enter data from women's notes about cases and controls. So again, a reminder about the case definition for the study. So for this fourth study, which is about PPH, a case is any woman who gave birth in an alongside midwifery unit or a freestanding midwifery unit who had a PPH requiring transfer to an obstetric unit, or who received care from an obstetrician for a PPH without transfer, and that's obviously most applicable to alongside units. So those are the women that we're collecting information about. And if you remember, talking about monthly reporting, at the beginning of every month, you will all receive an email that looks like this. The first one will arrive in your inbox on the 1st of October, and you will be able to provide your report for the previous month by clicking on the link in that email. And this is the screen that you will get to when you click on that link, asking you to tell us about the number of cases and the number of women who gave birth in the midwifery unit in that month as well, and then your email address and anything else you'd like to tell us. And when you click submit on that form, you will get this confirmation emailed to you, and that will confirm the number of cases that you reported, the total number of women that gave birth in the unit, and if you notice then that you've made a mistake, you can just contact us to ask us to change whatever figure that you've made a mistake with. But most importantly, you can see that the two cases have been given IDs, unique IDs, and here there's a link which you can click on to take you into Open Clinica, which is the data entry system. This is the case IDs, and we ask you to record these in the UKMIdSS log in your folder with the woman's identifying details like her address label alongside. Just to recap, we talked about this before, but your controls, just to remind you that controls are comparison women, and women who gave birth in the unit who were not a case, but we ask you to identify them in a very particular way, and it's very important that you do that in this way. So you identify the date and time that the case gave birth, and then you identify the woman who gave birth in the midwifery unit immediately before the case, who wasn't herself a case, and that woman is the control. If you have any doubts or questions about that at all, please do just email us or give us a call. I just want to, before I move on to data entry, just want to confirm that we have sent every new centre a UKMIdSS folder. So those of you who've been reporting for us for a while will already have your folder, and you should have been sent the extra information about this study that you can put in that folder. The folder has a guide which takes you through, in a step-by-step way, reporting and data entry. The main study protocol, our contact details. I think Jenny is also sending you a poster, if she hasn't done so already, and then there's the case log form, which looks like this. It's quite straightforward. You can use it or you can use some other way of recording it, but the most important thing is that you do record the case ID for any cases that you report, the date that you've reported it, and then the identifying details alongside for the case and the control. This means that you avoid any duplicate reporting, so you know the cases that you've reported and who they are. And it's really important because we don't have any identifying details for cases or controls. So if you don't keep this information, there's no link between the case ID and the actual one. Just to also remind you that our approvals mean that we don't have permission to collect any identifiable information. So please don't ever send us anything like that. So going back to your confirmation email, there's a link, as I said to you before here, which will take you through to the data entry system. And before we go there, just a few key points about data entry. You will need a web browser, so Internet Explorer, preferably version 10 or above, or Firefox or Chrome. These are all widely available and you should have access to that, I hope. If you don't, please let us know. All the information that you will need for this data entry should be in Women's Notes. The system works in the way that means that you can start entering data, you can save it partially completed, and you can return to complete it at a later date. There are some particular things you need to know about date and time formats. OpenClinica, the system we use, is very restrictive in terms of dates and times and the way that you enter them in the form. But there is, as I'll show you when we go through, there is a calendar icon in there, which I recommend that you use the calendar icon for entering dates. We also have some question-specific guidance for some of the questions with a little question mark thing, which you can hover over, and that will show you some information. But that may not quite be in the system yet. I'm going to show you the system in a test format. We're still putting finishing touches to it, so we may not be able to see any of those, but they should be there when you see the system. So I'm going to leave this presentation now and go to OpenClinica. So just bear with me while I do that. So this is the OpenClinica interface. This is the login screen that you will see when you click on the link. Oh, that's not showing up. Oh, nice. So we're just checking to see, as Jenny tells me that.
Could you chat and let us know if you can see that screen?
This isn't sharing Microsoft. Let's close that.
That's just a great screen.
Bear with us, guys, because this isn't.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can't see the screen.
No, that's fine. We're just working on that. Is that Catherine?
Yes, it is. We're having bother getting on the computer, so we're on a phone at the minute.
Okay. Just bear with us because we're just working out what the issue is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
What about turning the... Yes.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Now, hopefully everybody should be able to see the OpenClinica login screen. This is what you'll reach when you click on that link in your confirmation email.
Roughly the same, yes.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'm just going to log in, and I know that I can't type passwords and talk at the same time, so bear with me. Okay. So when you log in, you will see your individual subject matrix page. At the moment, you're seeing my login screen, which as I'm data manager brings you something else. So this is what you will see pretty much when you log into Open Clinica for the first time. It should have your name and the name of your unit at the top of the page, and you should only be able to see the unit that you report for. There's a small number of you who report for more than one unit. If this is the case, you need to check which unit is coming up at the top of the page. And if you want to enter data for a woman from a different unit from the one that's shown, you'll need to click Change Study Site at the top of the page and select the unit what you want from the list. More relevant for those of you who've been reporting for previous studies is that the chances are when you log in for the first time, you will see the previous study, the previous PPH study. And again, you need to click on Change Study Site at the top here and then switch to the postpartum hemorrhage study, which is the one that we'll be working on from now on, rather than the previous PPH study. And if you need to, you can switch between the two, obviously. So on the subject matrix page, you can see your case IDs down here for your cases and for your associated controls. So for each case ID, there's a case form and a control form. I should tell you from the outset that Open Clinica does look a bit complicated. It's not the nicest looking website you've ever seen, but it is easier to use than it looks, so bear with me. You really only need to focus on this bit in the middle. You never need to use any of this down the side. So just focus here for the time being. So each line represents a case with its associated control. Again, I've got lots of cases here. You will see the cases that you've reported. You won't see anything else. So you can also see that the icons here are different colours. So for this PH00040, you can see this is a blue icon, and that means that you've never been into the form before, you've not entered any data in there. Where a form has been started for data entry, it's amber, and forms which have been completed have a green icon. You can't see any green icons at the moment because none of these are complete, but I'll show you that later. If you have a long list of cases, you'll just see 15 here, and you can move through the list using these arrows at the top. You can also search for a specific case ID if you enter it in this box up here for the long list and you know the one you want to go to. So to enter data on a case, what you're going to do is click on the blue icon alongside the subject ID in the case column, like this, and click View Enter Data here. This will take you to a screen like this. Again, you can ignore most of it. You've got the study subject ID here, and where you need to focus is here in Actions. And you need to click on this, which is actually, I realised after quite a long time, it's a pen on a piece of paper. It's the icon that you need to click on to get to the screen to enter data. Click there. This will take you to the first data entry section. And you can see you've got the case ID at the top. It's important that you go to this section first, section 1, and that you don't skip to the other sections. You start with this section and start entering data here. You can see that there are multiple sections for the form. They're at the top in the tabs, and you can also select different sections here if you wanted to go to a particular section. But we're going to start in section 1. And you can see in red we've reminded you of the case definition, and again, the reminder to complete this section first. If at any point your responses in this section indicate that the woman is not a case, you don't need to enter any further data, but you should contact us to tell us what's going on, and we can remove that woman, that case, if necessary. So here you can start entering data. So did this woman give birth in the midwifery unit? Yes. If I'd selected no, the little message would have come up to say, if the woman didn't give birth in the midwifery unit, she's not a case, don't enter any further data, and please contact us. But we're going to say yes here. What month did the woman give birth? Did this woman have a postpartum hemorrhage? Requiring transfer from the obstetric unit? Yes. And that is the final question in that form, unless you tick no here, in which case there's a further question. If the woman wasn't transferred, but she did receive care from an obstetrician in the midwifery unit for a PPH, then you'd be answering yes here. And then you simply need to save, and that will take you on to the next section. If you don't click save at that point, a little message will come up to say you're moving elsewhere in the form and you haven't saved the data. Do you really want to do that? So almost 9 times out of 10 that's going to be no, so you need to click the form save. If you don't click save, you won't have saved any of the data that you've entered in that section of the form. So I'm going to take you through briefly. I'm not going to go through entering data in every single section of the form because that would be quite tedious, but I'll show you what the kind of data that we're requiring in each section. So this is section 2, details about the woman. And I'll also show you some of the, we have a few little rules behind the scenes for these forms, which make sure that we're checking that the data that that you're entering is the data that we need. So what was the woman's age at delivery? I'm going to enter 50 here. That's probably slightly unusual, and we'll see what that brings up later. And you can see that depending on the answers that you put in here, some other further questions come up. Is the woman currently in paid employment? Yes. We're asking you to put in her occupation here. It's possible that the occupation is not recorded, so you can then simply tick this box. Is the woman's partner in paid employment? No, the woman doesn't have a partner. So this is the first point where you're going to have to do something other than just entering data here. So children in low-income families measure score. That's not going to be recorded anywhere in women's notes. But what you need to do is click here. That takes you to a little website lookup site where you can enter a postcode. And you can see that I've entered a postcode here. A little score has come up. It's highlighted in blue. You can just copy and really unhelpful, sorry. Suggestion how to get back to that, Jenny. Let's see it, that's from the other tab, isn't it? Okay, so you've copied that and you can paste it back into the form here. Height at booking or height not recorded. Woman's weight at booking. Something ridiculous. Woman's BMI, I think this is actually a fault in the form at the moment. We're still going through checking some of these forms. We'll ask you to put in the woman's height and the weight. If for some reason the woman's height and weight are not recorded, but you do have BMI recorded, then you'll be given the option to enter the woman's BMI. But that won't pop up unless you've not been able to enter data at these 2 points. So let's just put something in there. And smoking status at delivery, so the woman gave up prior to pregnancy. So I've entered the data, I'm happy with all that, and I click save. And you can see some little red messages have come up at the top, and that's because I've entered some data that is not within the range that we would normally expect. So we have some checks that work behind the scenes in the data entry form, which just help us check whether you've entered something by mistake or whether you've entered something which is outside the range we'd expect, but is actually correct. So it's a kind of little check thing. So this woman, was she actually 50 or did I enter that by mistake? I'm going to say yes, she was actually 50, so we're going to leave that as it is. But I put in the woman was 189 kilos, and in fact, she was 89 kilos. So I've noticed that, and I'm happy with that. And then I can click save, and we'll move on to the next section. And if I go back to section 2, what you'll see is that it saved 89 kilos because that's absolutely fine. That's in the kind of range that we would expect. It's saved 50, but there's a little red flag next to it, which is highlighting the fact that I've entered some data that is outside the range that we'd expect. So if you know you've done that, you've brought up the little red error message, but you said, yes, that is the data that I meant to enter, it is correct. You know that this little red flag will have been generated. So I'm just going to show you what we would like you to do about that at this point. So it does allow you to go back to go on to the next section, but you'll need to go back to the section you were on, this section 2. Click on the red flag, click propose resolution, and just explain here that these data are correct. This woman was age 50. And click submit and exit. Okay, now nothing has changed at the moment, but if I go to section 3 and then back to section 2 again, you can see that this red flag has changed to green. Now, you can leave the red flag there if you're uncertain about what to do. The information is in your guide, but if you're not sure about it or you forget, the red flag will stay there. And then at the end of the month, when we check through, we will notice the red flag and we will contact you and ask you to do something about it. So if you notice that there's a red flag and you can do something about it, please do so if you can, because this means that we now don't need to chase you about this data. We know that 50 is correct. It's confirmed. We don't need to worry about it. If the red flag's there, we will contact you to have it confirmed. So I think that's everything on section 2. Section 3 is details about pregnancy and antenatal history. It should all be fairly straightforward. Yes or no, the woman has had previous pregnancies. If the woman has had previous pregnancies, we have some more questions popping up about how many completed pregnancies, how many pregnancy losses, any complications in previous pregnancies. Then you can see this question is, please tick all that apply, so you can tick more of these. You can tick that the woman had a cesarean section, and you can tick other, and if you tick other, you'll be asked to give some more information. Should all be fairly straightforward. Final estimated date of delivery gives us an opportunity to look at how Open Clinical deals with dates. Remember, I told you that Open Clinical is very fussy about date formats. It wants you to enter it like this. It's a bit of a faff. The easiest way to do it is to use the calendar. and you can go from month to month and select the date. Be careful that you don't accidentally go from year to year, so you're entering something that is 27th of November 2020 when you meant to enter 19, so just keep an eye on that kind of thing. But it's most straightforward to use the date icon, or the calendar icon, the dates. Otherwise, there is a reminder here of the format that you need. These questions should all be fairly straightforward. Tick an option, you can tick more than one, and there's other or none of the above. So I'm not going to save that. I'm going to move to the next section, and it will remind me you've unsaved data. Are you sure you want to jump to another section without saving? That's fine for my purposes. So we'll just switch to section 4. The section 4 is about labour and birth care. Again, 4.1 says, please click here to enter key labour and birth care dates and times. And that's because some dates and times are considered to be identifiers. So there are some that we don't have permission to collect, but we are interested in some durations in relation to labour and birth care. So we have, again, a separate web form for you to click on here to enter dates and times. So we ask you to enter all the labour and birth related dates and times here. So you can see date and time of start of labour care, date and time of delivery, and various other dates and times, in particular in relation to transfer. Obviously, this is a particular issue of importance for this study. The date and time format is here. It's not the same as in Open Clinica, but again, there is a calendar option. So if you use the calendar option, it will put the date in the correct format for you, and you can enter in the dates and times here. I'm not going to go through the whole form, but I do have a form. It's a bit like Blue Peter list. I do have a form where I've entered some dates already, some dates and times, to show you what happens. So some of these are probably nonsensical, but the entire form has been completed. So you've entered all the dates and times, and then you click submit. And what it comes up with is the durations that we're interested in. So the time from one point in labour to another. And at this point, it's really important that you check these carefully, that they make sense. So overall duration of labour care, 10 hours for this woman. Duration between delivery and first administration of oxytocic drug, 15 hours. As I said, I've entered some nonsensical data in here, but for you, that should flag up that somewhere you've entered something wrong. So you just need to go down and check what it is that you entered and correct it. So it is really important that you check these. We don't hold the data that you've entered on dates and times. You enter it in the form and it disappears. So, and we've got no way of checking whether they're correct or not. You're the person who can check whether they're correct. So please check through this carefully. Once you're happy that it's correct, again, it's a copy and paste. So you're copying the blue and going back to the Open Clinica form and pasting it in. Okay, and then you carry on with the rest of the form. I think these are all fairly straightforward unless Jane thinks there's anything important to bring up. Mode of birth. And so on. Okay, saving that. of that because some of the rules are quite fixed. We'll go on to section 5. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Estimated blood loss, treatment for PPH. Various other questions about management, underlying cause of PPH. There's options here. Then when you select other, you'll almost always be asked to give some more details. And then we'll move on to section 6, which is baby outcomes, birth weight, sex, UPGAR score, and so on. And should be relatively straightforward. If we ask whether the baby was admitted, and we ask a few follow-up questions about duration of neonatal stay and the reason for admission. Again, should all be fairly straightforward. And then finally, section 7 is the end of the form. We ask if there is any other information that you want to enter here. Please enter anything that you think might be important at that point. And then at that point, you need to, if you're happy that the form is complete and you don't need to go back to the form to enter any further data, you've not left anything that needs you to go back to it afterwards. You finish the form. The most important thing that you remember here is that you have to mark form complete. So the CRF stands for case report form. And essentially what you're saying is, I have finished, this form is complete. So when you click on the mark CRF complete box, a little warning will come up saying, marking the CRF complete finalises data entry. So are you sure that the form is complete? At that point, if you're sure, you click OK and save. And you will notice it's taken you out of the form, and the icon here and in the subject matrix has gone green. So that form is now complete. Interestingly, Open Clinical will let you mark the form complete even if it is entirely blank, even if you've left sections blank. So it's important that you don't mark it complete unless the form is actually complete. We do have some checks that will identify missing sections, sections that are completely blank, and so on. So we will get back to you if we find that's happened, but it's always better to do those checks yourself. So make sure the form is complete before you mark it complete, and then you've got this nice little green tick here. That's not the end of the story, that's your case form. You will also need to enter data for your control. I'm just going to go through and look at this control form. This is for a control for a different woman. We'll show you the control form. The control form is almost identical. It starts off with guidance about how to identify your control, just to make sure that you've identified the correct woman, and then a simple check. Please confirm that this woman gave birth in the midwifery unit immediately before the case, and then please confirm that the woman did not was not a case, essentially. So if you answered no to either of these questions, you'll get a little warning coming up here. We're happy that that's okay. We've entered the date and saved, and we've moved on to the rest of the form. The control form, as I said, is almost identical. So you'll see that we're asking for the same data for the controls, for obvious reasons, because that's what we're doing. We're comparing the data for the cases with the controls, so we pretty much need the same data. So section 7, mark it complete. I'm not going to do that because the form isn't complete. We can click on exit to get back to our subject matrix. And you can see now, I've been into the form, I've entered a little bit of data, so the icon's gone amber, but it's not complete, so it hasn't gone green. Okay, so I think that is all I wanted to say about data entry. It is possible to go back into the form and edit a completed form if you want to. There's information in the guide about that. So I wasn't going to go into detail. I know this is very new to some people, so I don't want to go into detail about that at this point. But there is information in your guide about how to do that. So you would only really ever need to do that if you've marked a form complete. We've come back to you saying there are a couple of red flags in the form. We want you to check and, if necessary, change or confirm the data. And then you would need to go back into the form that you've already entered and change the data. But I'm not going to explain that at this point. I think that's, as I said, all I want to say. I'm going to try and switch back. I think that's probably us done. Those are our contact details at the end. And now we've got time for any questions that have come up. It's a little bit of a learning curve using OpenClinica, but as I said, it's not as complicated as it looks. It doesn't look very friendly, but generally it's okay once you get used to it. People often ask how long it takes to fill in a form, and I think that varies. We did at the start of UKMIdSS collect some data on how long it took people, and it looked on average that people were taking about 15 or 20 minutes for a form. I think it realistically depends on how easy it is for you to sit with your data next to you, and how easy it is to get it out into OpenClinica quickly, and also it gets quicker the more you use OpenClinica and the more you become familiar with the form. It's probably worth saying that there is a sample form, there are sample case and control forms on the website now. So although you won't have access to OpenClinica yet, you can have a look at the form so you can see the question.
Okay, so Anne's asked us a question, which is how long do we have to enter data?
Okay, so we don't give anybody a time limit because we understand that for some people it's easier than others, and you're fitting this in all around your clinical work, which is much more important. We do start reminding you about data entry that you haven't completed, and those reminders, we start doing that when it's 6 weeks since you reported the case and you haven't yet completed the case and the control. So that's not to say we expect it to be done within that time. It's always easier and better generally to try and keep on top of your reporting and data entry and not get too much of a backlog, obviously, but we understand that other things crop up. So there's no strict time limit, but we will remind you if you've reported a case and you haven't finished the data entry within 6 weeks, and then we will carry on reminding you until it's complete. Does that help? I hope so. We also do the same for reporting. So if you are, we give you a little bit longer for your report. So if you get to the point where you're 3 months behind with any given report, so you haven't yet reported for September and we're into December, then we'll remind you about that too. And then every month we will send you a summary of where you are. So in terms of your reporting and your data entry, how up to date you are, what you still have left to do. So we keep in touch with you to let you know where you are, but hopefully we're not too overbearing in terms of hassling. So a bit of a balance, but yeah.
Okay, I'll ask another question. If the baby dies after birth, how long do you need to know? Presumably only if it's when they're on the unit.
Yes, well, we don't expect you to be sort of tracking down notes to confirm definitely whether the baby's died. Is that so? You know, if you've completed the data entry, we're not expecting you to follow up on that kind of thing. Is that what you were asking, Anne? Yeah, good. Yeah.
There's another question as well, which is from Lindsay. Lindsay, you've said that you're not able to log the data on the actual day that it happens. You have to wait for the first of the next month.
Yes, so we ask you to report on the previous month. So you're right, you can't enter the data when it actually happens. You need to wait until after the first of the following month. So there are a couple of options there if you do want to record the data on the day that it happens. One is to take our sample form off the website, print it out and record it on that form so that you've got it there for when you report the case. The other, which is an option that we are going to be piloting with a small number of reporters who are particularly interested, is we are developing an option to report and enter data live as it happens, as it were. This isn't available to everybody. We're only going to make it available to experienced reporters in the first instance, and only on request. Lindsay, is that Lindsay Phillips? Yeah, so Lindsay, you know what you're doing. You've worked with us for a while. So if that's an option that you would be interested in, you may have already let us know about that. But if you haven't and you would be interested, then let us know by today or by email or whatever, and we'll be in touch. We want to make sure that we've got the study up and running for everybody first before we start rolling out this pilot. And it really is just a pilot to see how people get on with it. It's taken a little bit of work behind the scenes on the programming, but it will be an option as a pilot for this study. So we'll be in touch when it's available. Thank you, everybody. Particularly thank you to those of you who are new to UKMIdSS in freestanding units. We're really pleased that you're joining us, and thank you for joining us today for this. I think Ginny and I will sign off now. And the video we'll tidy it up a little bit, hopefully take out some of our scrappy technical issues, and then it'll be up on the website for everybody. In the meantime, if you've got any questions at all, please do email or give us a call. Okay, thank you very much.